Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid. So today I'm going to be taking a look through the albums of Europe, the Swedish former Swedish pop metalers. I suppose there's something different now. So they formed 1979, they meet at school, John Norum, Joey Tempest. They form a band together, originally called it Force. I don't know when they changed the name of Europe, but in 1982 they enter a televised talent competition in Sweden, which they win. And this leads them on to a record deal and the beginnings of their career. They're joined by John Levin on bass and a guy called Tony Reno on drums at this point. So their debut album is self-titled, it's Europe. So I'm just going to get my apology out of the way. This will appear back to front because I'm doing this in beauty face. I've just tried to do this the right way round, but I can't see what I'm doing, and it's really hard for me to line my face up properly, align the CD up properly, and that's the way it is. So I apologise for that. So here's the cover back to front. Anyone who watches these will know that's what happens with these videos that I do. So this album, Homes Within the Future to Come, one of the best tracks on the album, really good opener. First thing you notice about it is it's a lot more metal. It's a lot more got a kind of new Wobben influence in it, kind of a bit of a Def Leppard era On Through the Night you can kind of hear on this album. Obviously 70s rock influences like Lizzie and UFO, who are big influences on the band, Deep Purple and so on. Joey's voice is, although it sounds like Joey's, his vocals have nowhere near developed to where they'll get to. So again, it's got that thing that a lot of early kind of metal albums have, rock albums by young bands, where you know things can be, they'll have a certain kind of charm, but the band's still got a long way to go, basically. And this album fits that bill. So it's a really good track, and the track after that's Farewell, pretty good kind of 6 out of 10 track. And then probably the best track on the album, Seven Doors Hotel. So this was, I think it was a B-side of Final Countdown, a single. It was certainly, I think, featured, re-recorded possibly, and featured on one of the B-sides of Rock the Night Carry or something like that. Really good track, big whoa 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 bit from Joey, and popular track live that he still sometimes play. And a side one on the original vinyl, I think, finished with this track, The King Will Return. So this is their spin on kind of Rainbow, I guess a song like In the Temple of the King. It's got a certain naive charm, I quite like it. Yeah, so, you know, fairly solid. Then there's Boyers on next. This is an instrumental by John Norum. Doesn't totally work, this good guitar harmony part, but kind of loses its way. He'll do a much better one on the next album. I should say on this album, Norum does play well. Again, he doesn't show what he was going to do and what he can do. You know, it's a debut. It's very much a debut album, this. At a time when bands were given time to develop and Europe were. Now, you know, if a band doesn't, you know, make a great record out of the box, they're nowhere, and then they kind of end up kind of stuck, to me, you know, on the first 2 albums. Children of This Time is one of the best tracks on the album as well, and a really good deep cut. It's pretty... got a rocking kind of gallop, got the lights out gallop obviously, but again kind of could be sort of a bit Def Leppard, you know, that gallop they use on Walls Come Tumbling Down, you know, that On Through the Night vibe. Then Words of Wisdom, again sort of cheesy lyric, not one of the best tracks. And then Paradise Bay. Now this is one of the best tracks. This is pretty heavy. I think they still play this, I think they play this live on the 30th anniversary tour or show they did for the Final Countdown. Well, it was the 30th anniversary of Europe. Apologies. But this is a really cool track. It's rocking. And then it finishes with Memories, which, again, it's quite metal-y, really. You know, there's no keyboards on this album. There's 4-piece at this point. There's John Levin on bass, Joey John, and then a guy called Tony Reno on drums. If you look there, I'll show you a picture, and that guy with the blonde hair. He would do the next album as well, but then he would be let go on the tour for that, and Ian Hoglan would join. So I give that album a 6 out of 10, maybe 6.5. But it's like your classic sort of first album. It shows promise. There's a naivety to it. The band quite a way off getting all their chops, all their vocal chops, drums, everything together, and find the right production. There's actually something wrong with one of the toms on that album. So whenever they whack that tom on some tracks, it over distorts. Next album shows a massive improvement. So the first time I heard this, I was working at a service station as my weekend job when I was about 17. I was aware of Europe, the Final Countdown. I never showed much interest in them, and then someone put tape on in the staff room or were listening to it, and I think it was track 2 of this album, and a really cool solo. I'm like, who's this? And I looked up and I thought, oh, it was Europe. So I kind of made a mental note of it. Later on, I got the Out of This World album, and then I got this album, which is Wings of Tomorrow. Not on CD, obviously. Cool album cover, that. Sorry, it's the wrong way round. Production's better on this. Opens with two of their very best tracks. Stormwind's the opening track, really good. Got a nice sort of cool lyric title there. Lovely guitar line by Norum. Lovely up-tempo groove. Cool vocal by Joey. Again, his vocals haven't developed. He's still got a kind of rough edge to his vocals on this. But a really, really good track. And then maybe the second track is maybe the best Europe track ever. If it's not the best Europe track, it's right up there, and it's Scream of Anger. And this is proper Full Throttle. It's got a really cool kind of almost wild, slightly phased riff by Norum. Kind of using open strings. Really heavy verse. With Joey really giving it some balls. Then the chorus is quite Malmsteen-ish. Obviously at this time Yngwie's kind of, he's dropped a couple of albums and he's friends with Norum, they're both Swedish, or maybe Norm's picked up on that. Got a fantastic solo by Norum. So he brings out all these kind of lovely Schenker style licks and Gary Moore bends and stuff. And that's really where he's at his strongest, Norum, as a kind of hybrid of Schenker and Moore. And this album, 1984, I would say Norm's performance in this album, it does, although doesn't hit the highs of Van Halen on 1984 or Lynch on Tooth and Nail. He does hold his own and puts himself in the mix with guys like Vivian Cameron, Warren Martini, and those types of players who are coming on the back of Van Halen and Schenker and showing what they can do. And he's a great player. Always hugely admired him. He's also the guy who got the best guitar solo ever to #1 with the Final Countdown. Track 3 is Open Your Heart. So this track was re-recorded later on for the Out of This World album, superiorly in my view, and much better production on the Out of This World version, better solo by Keith Marcello, but it's still a good track. I maybe don't like it as much because I preferred the other version. Then you got Treated Bad Again. This is kind of a stompy bluesy rocker with loads of cool Norum lead. I think it's probably like an F sharp or something. It's got that vibe. It's not a great track, but it's a good 6 out of 10 track. And then the side 1 finished with Aphasia. This is an instrumental track, just 2.5 minutes by John Norum. This is a really cool tune. Got a great solo, cool melody. And he does a much better job here than he did on the track Boys On. So that's side 1, a good solid side. Again, side 2 opens with 2 really strong tracks, Wings of Tomorrow and Wasted Time. Wings of Tomorrow's got a really cool chorus. Nice guitar lines by Norum, quite cool lyrics, melodies by Joey. Wasted Time's got a kind of cool gallop. Again, they kind of bring back the lights out, the UFO influence, but it's pretty heavy. Really cool kind of outro solo. Then Lion Eyes is number 8. This is kind of up-tempo rocker. Not a great track list, but it's still pretty good. And then you got 9, which is Dreamer. This is kind of the ballad track, quite sort of plaintive, quite reflective. Quite like it. Again, it's not one of my favourite tracks, but I do think it's good. Quite a nice Norum solo, and then it finishes off a real heavy one, Dance the Night Away. I think they did a cover of this actually. Well, not a cover; it's their song, a version of this for their lockdowns videos they were doing in the pandemic. I like this track. I mean, this album, what's it worth out of 10? It's probably an 8 out of 10, or maybe a 7.5. I think maybe if Joey's voice was fully developed and the production was maybe a bit better, but it's a very good second album. And again, they've taken a step up from the first album. Bands were given time back then. They didn't have to make a great record. First off, they just needed to show promise and get out there live and have some tracks where people go, oh, that's good. And then they did the second album, so it's better. And then you get to album number 3, which is this, The Final Countdown. So this is the song, the album that principally the band is known for. It's the reason the band are a global act still. It's the reason the band can still tour most nooks and crannies in the world. I think the official video for the title track has got nearly 900 million views on YouTube, so it's nearly up to 1 billion. The title track, massive hit, #1 I think in about 25 countries, or certainly top 10. So I remember when it kind of came out of nowhere. I remember on Top of the Pops or something, TV show we watched, they had the video. I'm like, who's this band? This sounds heavy. Obviously, Norum Tears are like a great solo off. Yeah, I guess I kind of always liked the track, but then I kind of resented the pop metal, and I didn't like Rock the Night really. And then there was the whole Bon Jovi thing at the time, and I did like Bon Jovi. But, you know, so it took me a while to come round to Europe. I actually was never that bothered with this album, and recently I got this was the one I've showed you, it's got the Rock Candy remaster. So I had a good crank of it a few times on my system downstairs, and actually was really enjoying it. I think this benefits from having a bit more punch on the mastering. But I think the problem with this album is the songs that make it a success are the ones that start the album. I love the track The Final Countdown, but I do not need to listen to it in my house. I like The Final Countdown when I'm watching a sports programme and it comes on. I like it when Europe appeared. They did some charity thing on BBC TV and played The Final Countdown. This was in recent times. And it was great. And Norum, you know, went down the front on TV and played a proper guitar solo on TV, which, you know, is a rare thing these days. You know, if I was out in a pub and someone put on, yeah, I'd enjoy it. When I'm seeing Europe live, I enjoy bouncing along. It's just I don't need to hear it. Yeah. Second track, Rock the Night, so that was the other big hit. I do quite like this track. It's just always had a bit of cheese for me. I'm not massively keen. I find a couple aspects of Norm's solo annoying on this. He kind of does this whammy bar thing where he pulls at the pitch. It's not really Norm-y. I don't think he does it very well. He does it 2 other times on the album. And it's kind of like he's flirted with that thing for this recording. But, you know, it's a catchy track. Then you got Carrie, which is a big ballad hit. I think this was number 3 in America. It got to even higher than the Final Countdown track. The problem with this is it's got that cheesy sort of keyboardy piano sound. If it had a proper Steinway on it, you know, like Journey or UFO might have used like a proper piano. It's got a catchy chorus, but it's that thing where a band does a ballad, girls get into the track, and then, you know, nothing wrong with that, but by the album it's like, well, what's all this heavy stuff with guitar solos? What happened to Extreme? What happened to every band that had a hit single? And it gave bands huge sales, but it created this unreality about what the band was about. So that's my sort of problem with the record. But then it kicks up. You got Danger on the track, best track on the album, great Deep Purple riffing influence, fantastic vocals and melody from Joey. His vocals are spot on this album. He's a great singer. He finally arrives on this album, probably because I've had the budget and he's taken his time with Kevin Nelson, the producer, who did Journey, Escape and Frontiers, and he's got a better, you know, he's got the most out of his pipes at this point. Yeah, great track, great Norum solo. Like I said, keyboard solo, Mick McKaylee, it's really good. I should say, yeah, Mick McKaylee joined sometime in the Wings of Tomorrow tour, I think, or around the time of that album. Well, there's not much keys on that. And then obviously he's in full member, full flight on this. And then side 1 of the original vinyl finishes with Ninja. Stupid lyric, but again, nice sort of neoclassical European metal style on this, rock style. Great solo by Norum. It does a lovely little melody, really good. And then the album's kicking off here. Side 2 opens with the best single off the album, which is Cherokee. So this was the single that was the least popular. By the time we released this, Key Marcello was on guitar, so he's on the video. But again, cheesy lyric, but I've always really liked it. Great chorus, great guitar solo. Really good vocal. Top opener side 2. Then Time Has Come. Again, when I was listening to this track recently, I was a bit, it's an okay track, but I was really enjoying it. It's got a different feel to anything else in the album. It's got a lovely verse melody, great chorus with great harmonies and good whoa-whoa-whoas in the background from Joey. Really nice Norum solo, a little bit different to what he'd usually do. Good track. Then Heart of Stone. This is kind of like one of the heavier sort of rockers on the album. Again, quite an interesting solo with Norum. He's using a kind of wispy, almost, maybe not a neck pickup, maybe kind of one of the position 4 or 2, perhaps, maybe the middle setting on his Strat. Yeah, this is a good one. Again, really good Joey vocal. It's catchy. Then next one's On the Loose. I didn't used to like this track, but I do. I think it's good. It's really catchy. When I was listening to it, it kind of reminds me of Chapman era UFO, the riff. So if you think of like Making Moves or We Belong to the Night, that kind of song. Catchy chorus. Yeah. And then Love Chaser finishes off. This starts off with Parpy Keyboards by Mick McKaylee. Michele a bit kind of like the Final Countdown, and then it's got a kind of slow gallop, but it's catchy. So the album, this is a strong record. Joey Thames sings excellent. The arrangements are excellent. I think the album's about 40 minutes long. It's really well arranged. The production's good. I think the drums could have more punch. I still think Noram's guitar's watered down on some tracks on it, and I think that was a problem. I think that kind of probably lodged itself in his head, and then when they got big on the single, and he didn't like all the magazine shoots apparently, and like, you know, the type of fans who are attracting the pop group aspect of it, he you know, that's why he decided to leave, which is a bold thing to do. Remember, he's been in his band since school, and he's walking away from it when they're selling. Well, this album sold 6 million copies, triple platinum in the States, 6 million worldwide in its initial run. Now with streaming, and I mentioned about YouTube there, you know, it's probably added another million or beyond to that, in terms of what its sales would log. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one. In the last week I've been, this is a better record than I thought. I still think Wings of Tomorrow is better in some ways, and I think his next album is their best one, and it's Out of This World, and this marks the debut of Key Marcello. Now I will be doing a classic album inspection on this record when it's its 35th anniversary, over on my other channel. So I'll not go on about this one as much because we'll go into more depth on there. But basically, Key comes in, he plays fantastic solos on this album. It's a bit more guitar orientated. The production with Ron Neverson, obviously he's a hero of the band. He worked with UFO. It's a superior sounding record to anything they've done up to this point. Not a bad track on it. 12 tracks, really consistent. Joey's vocals are better again. Got standout cuts, Superstitious, Let the Good Times Rock, More Than Meets the Eye, Sign of the Times, you know, would just be a few of them. And the aforementioned Open Your Heart cover. I think it's one of the great albums of its day. It's an album I still love. And like I say, we'll be going into it in more depth. But that is a must buy. If you're going to buy one Europe album, get that one. And then they kind of do the sort of album that kind of got forgot about a bit. I'm guilty of that. I bought this on vinyl when it came out. I gave it about 6 spins, but I just wasn't into it. It wasn't as good as Out of This World. I felt Key wasn't, you know, ripping it up as much, or it wasn't connecting with me, and I just kind of cast it aside. So I came back to it a lot later, in about the mid 2000s. It's Prisons in Paradise. So this comes out, let's bloody back to front, I know. This came out about the worst possible time. So basically the band did Out of This World, and that sold 3 million copies. It was half as many worldwide as Final Countdown. Then they did the Out of This World tour, which I saw them on. They were superb. Then they have to do the tax off thing. Obviously, Sweden has a high tax rate, so they're kind of recording abroad. I think they did this, you know, Bahamas or something. Hence the title, Prisoners in Paradise. Nice work, you can get it. But they hooked up with Beau Hill, and he recorded it using something called Q Sound. Obviously, Beau Hill's famous for Warrant Rat Winger. Europe aren't a band he needed to help in the studio. They're great players. But when I came back to this album and listened to it recently, it's a fantastic sounding record. And it's actually a better sounding record than it's Out of This World. The drums have got that oversized thing, you know, but it's a great drum sound. Not as bishy as Out of This World. Key's guitar's kind of a little rawer. Kind of, you can really hear it's kind of like more Marshall, you know, plug-in straight in sound. Very good. Joey probably gives his best vocal performance on this. Very good. And yeah, Key does step up with some stunning lead work. He's playing a little more gutsy, a little less structured. There's not kind of chorus on the guitar. He's kind of plugging straight in more with a Les Paul and a Marshall. And I think his vibrato's a bit better on this. I've had a criticism of Key. His vibrato's good on Out of This World, but it hasn't got that quality of, say, Malmsteen or Norum, Gary Moore, Lynch. You know, it's a good vibrato. On this, he's kind of getting it more, and later on his vibrato would get even better. But yeah, so it is a really good record. It's quite Americanized in its sound, but it just comes out at the wrong time. It comes out end of September 1991. You know, it's like literally the week that Nevermind comes out. So, and by this time, Europe and hair metal's toast, really. And it still sells 1 million copies worldwide, which bands would, you know, kill their granny for now. it just wasn't to be, and this precipitated the band ending in 92 initially. But Homes of All or Nothing, really catchy track. Again, very, very sort of glam metal. Halfway to Heaven, great track. Great solo by Key, really catchy. And then the big sort of pop sort of ballady track, I'll Cry For You, which is great. Really good guitar hook from Key. Brilliant vocal by Joey. Next two tracks are kind of fillers. A little bit of Love and Talk To Me, but they're good, they're well structured, well produced. There's no sort of wastage on this album. And then side one finished with Seventh Sign, which is one of the best tracks on the album, probably the heaviest track on the album. Really grinding riff, more kind of Deep Purple influence coming in. Awesome Key solo. Side two opens with the title track. Again, a great track, very cheesy Americanized Bon Jovi style lyrics going about Jimmy and Julie. Bit cheesy, but it's really good. It's kind of epic chorus. The bridge is really epic, and then Key does an epic solo with harmonies where he kind of plays cross lines across himself. Really good. Then you got Bad Blood. This is a kind of sleazy rocker. It's pretty cool groove. Again, quite kind of hair metal. In a way that there weren't this hair metal before. Homeland, this is a track I didn't used to like, but it's a good ballad, obviously about being away from Sweden. Lovely kind of semi-distorted clean licks, bluesy licks from Key. Big sort of bluesy solo in the middle. Epic chorus, Light As In The Air ballad. Good tune. And then it's got Your Mind in the Gutter. Again, quite interesting. It's trying to think what it reminds me of. I can't think. There's a track from the 80s it does remind me of. So it's kind of got like brass on it and that a bit more, going for the Aerosmith thing. Maybe one of my least favourite tracks, but I don't dislike it. Then there's To My Heart Beats Down Your Door. This has got a really interesting keyboard line on it. Good hook. Again, an interesting track. And then it finishes with one of the strong tracks on the album, Girl From Lebanon, which has got lovely guitar work from Key. And they still play that live. Alice Will didn't mark out of 10 before. I'd give that a 9, obviously. This, I kind of pushed to an 8 on it, but I'm kind of going to say 7, 7.5. And Final Countdown, kind of the same, I think. But on another day, it could be an 8. So at this point, Europe split up. They disappear. Then they get back together for the Millennium and do the Final Countdown on some kind of TV show. And then I'm guessing they kind of decide to get back together in 2003, and they come back on Start From The Dark. I actually saw them on this tour. I was on holiday in New York in 2005. It's a really good show. I bought the album. I don't dislike it. I kind of went off it a bit. It's kind of flirting with Audio Slave, Rage Against the Machine style riffs. So trying to change the sound. It has got good songs in it. Got Our Faith, Start From The Dark are good. Heroes good. Wake Up Call, Reasons quite interesting. Song number 12's got like a really good hook on it. Roll With You, I like that. That's the ballad. Sucker. Norm does a cool kind of Schenker Obsession style lead on that. Spirit of the Underdog, yep, it's quite catchy. Set Off for Love's like a kind of acoustic ballad at the end. It's just, it doesn't quite sound like Europe enough for me. They're obviously trying to kind of contemporise their sound, and it's that weird time where rock hasn't become classic rock yet. Still, it's still like kind of people are still trying to kind of flirt with the previous century really, and the 90s. But I give it a 6 out of 10. I used to have it, but it wasn't something I was going to listen to too much. Next one, Secret Society. Again, I bought this at the time. Different sound to Start From The Dark, not sort of doing the Audio Slave, Velvet Revolver thing. Now, that's one of the other things I saw them in the UK on this tour, and Joey Tempest was using a loud halo like Scott Weiland, and I just sort of thought, what are you doing that for? But it was still good live. Wasn't first with his title track, Always The Pretenders, very good track, and Getaway Plan, they're really good. The next two tracks, Wish I Could Believe, Let the Children Play, they're kind of a bit mid-tempo. I would say at this point, Joey Tempest used to write all the songs, and when they came back, Norm was co-writing more, Mick McKiley. So it's kind of more variety. And you got Human After All. They're all right as tracks. Love Is Not the Enemy, that's a really good track. Mother's Son, I'm not as into. Forever Travelling, that's really nice. You got a lovely Norum solo in the middle of that on the neck pickup. Then there's Brave and Beautiful Soul, which is alright. And then it finishes with Devil Singles the Blues, which is maybe the best track on the album. It's really good. And you got a fantastic outro solo by Norum. So yeah, Norum didn't really show much on Start From the Dark album, but on this, there's definitely 2 or 3 solos where he's showing that masterful touch. And his vibrato's improved. He's got this richer, wider vibrato. Now the next album, hold on, I'm just clicking through here. Okay, no, it's like... Right, I've got the album anyway. It's Last Look at Eden. So this actually won the Classic Rock Award for Album of the Year, or was quite high. Listened to it the other day again, I haven't listened to it for a while. Production's a bit muddy. It's a bit overcooked, the mastering, which is a problem of albums at that time. But it is a really good record. I think what this does, this balances old and new Europe. So you've got Europe pursuing a new sound with the type of riffs I'm talking about. They're also starting to go into their next sound that they're going to explore, which they're in at the moment, which is more kind of 70s rock, Deep Purple, Rainbow, UFO type thing, which I've always done in a way. But it still has those kind of hooks and melodic elements that we know from the 80s era. The title track's great, Last Look at Eden, Gonna Get You Ready's cool. Cool sort of Deep Purple. Catch That Plane, that's really good. Nice Dorian sort of tonality to that. New Love in Town, that's actually an old track off the Prisoners in Paradise sessions, I think. I didn't mention actually for that album, Prison in Paradise, they actually wrote 25 songs and recorded 16 or 17. So there's a lot of work went in there. But New Love in Town is really good. Then you got The Beast, which is an up-tempo rocker. Mojito Girl, kind of catchy. No Stone Unturned. This is a really cool track. This has got a really cool keyboard lines, sort of Middle Eastern vibe. Lovely keyboards by Mick Michaela, top solo. They still play that live. Very good track. Then Only Young Twice, You Devil You. They're okay. They're not as good. And then Room of the Angels and In My Time finish it off in really strong style. In My Time's a kind of motive blues ballad. John Norum lost his wife close to this period. Michelle Meldrum, who's in the metal band Phantom Blue, if we remember them, and he lets her with a really beautiful, couple of beautiful solos. It's kind of like the famous Led Zeppelin one off Led Zeppelin 3. The name escapes me. You know the one. He does a lovely solo in the middle, and he lets rip with a lovely fade out solo, brings out some lovely chops. A bit like Devil Sings the Blues on the previous one. After that, I got Bag of Bones. They had Kevin Shirley producing this, his popular producer to work with. Actually quite like the sound of this record. Shirley does a good job. He doesn't normally, but he's got a lovely warm guitar sound. I just find it lacking at this point. I find Joey's kind of not writing bridges like the Utes do, so they'll set up with a good verse, but then the bridge won't have the lift, and then sometimes the chorus just doesn't have the soaring nature. Joey Tempest Forte as a writer-singer was his ability to write good parts that work together. But it's Riches to Rags, which is good, and Not Supposed to Sing the Blues. Firebox is an example. Nice groove and that. Just missing that big hook. Bag of Bones I do like. Demon Head, that's pretty cool. Bring It All Home. In actual fact, Bring It All Home, that's the last track on the album. That's a track I really like, and that was one, I think, again from the Prisoners in Paradise era that they've reworked. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. But other people have kind of gotten to Europe now and they like this direction that they're going, and this is the bluesy Deep Purple and so on direction. And then the next album, it's the kind of same thing. War of Kings, I must confess, I listened to this album a few times when it came out. They're kind of going for the Deep Purple Rainbow thing on this, particularly on the title track. But War of Kings, Children of the Mind, Days of Rock and Roll, are cool tracks. I think The Second Day as well. Again, this is a good record. They recorded with Dave Cobb on this as well, so they went with a different producer on this, and he did Rival Sons. Again, I think that kind of mirrors where they're wanting to go. They're wanting to go for a retro rock sound. I think, obviously, I don't like that as much. Not that I don't dislike that kind of music, but I just like Europe to be, more the 80s Europe. Again, it's a 6 out of 10. There's people who would like it more than me. And then Walk the Earth 2017. It's the same story. The title track of The Siege is really good. Election Day is excellent. There's GTO's a kind of up-tempo rocker. So again, there's people who could talk with more authority and know those albums better. I decided to get off the Europe train for the time being. I just felt, after Last Look at Eden, there wasn't enough of the old Europe in there for me. So that's Europe up till now. Obviously, by this point, they've normally done a new album, I guess, but obviously that's been held up because we've been in a pandemic and beyond. But maybe one's come out by the time I drop this. Sometimes there's a sort of a delay. I can see I've waffled on for 30 minutes, but 11 albums, it's quite a lot. Okay, so that's Europe. Remember, share and subscribe. Please subscribe to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid. If you're interested in checking out other album articles, reviews, go over to my other website. You'll find it in the channels link on this one. Edward Box, Guitar Tuition, EBGT. Just click on that and do classic album inspection there. But also got a playlist on this channel of those reviews. So hopefully see you again soon, and thanks very much.